Then another problem arose. This time, an argument started over who would use the bed.
I say, we arrived first, so it's rightfully ours.
What utter balderdash is that?
As my expression worsened at the renewed enthusiastic debate, one pimpfield who noticed suddenly pointed at us and suggested,
I have a proposition. Rather than squabbling amongst ourselves, why don't we allow these human couples, who are clearly the largest here, to make use of the bed?
I froze for a moment. Faced with this situation that I initially didn't think much of, I suddenly remembered an important issue I had forgotten. Sleeping in the same bed with Edwin in this situation. So close that I could feel his breath. This wasn't a simple problem. My heart started pounding. No, we can't share the same bed. I immediately shook my head, trying not to let my voice tremble as I spoke. Edwin asked with a puzzled expression. His eyebrows raised slightly, showing a curious expression.
Why? What's the problem?
I hesitated, biting my lip. Edwin's gaze pressured me. My heart fluttered as I met his deep blue eyes. There was an expectation of something more than mere curiosity in his eyes. Swallowing the words that rose to my throat, I barely opened my mouth. Well, when I'm with you, some strange fantasies keep coming up. It's bothering me. Edwin approached a step closer with a playful smile. His scent brushed my nose. It was his unique fragrance, a mix of forest freshness and the heavy scent of leather.
What kind of strange fantasies?
His voice resonated low and soft. I muttered, avoiding his eyes. I could feel my cheeks heating up. Well, it's nothing. Edwin came closer and asked in a low voice. His voice tickled my ear.
Tell me, by strange fantasies, you don't mean the Curse of Taten is planning a secret assassination, do you?
At his words, my mind went blank for a moment. My lips seemed to move on their own. Of course not. It's just things like kissing. As soon as I blurted it out, my cheek started burning. Wait, what did I just say? My heart pounded with embarrassment. I met Edwin's eyes and quickly looked away. Well, to be precise. My voice grew increasingly smaller, as if shrinking. It's like just before a kiss. How should I put it? Almost touching, but not quite. My thoughts became increasingly tangled. Yes, it was a kiss. But it was with someone else in my memories. How do I explain this? Hazy fragments of past memories swirled confusingly in my mind. Edwin remained motionless for a moment. I could sense his breathing subtly changing. The tips of his ears began to redden slightly. A strange light flickered in his eyes.
Valentina.
He called my name softly. There was a subtle tremor in his voice. What should I do if misunderstandings pile up like this? I bit my lip, pondering. Telling the truth would require a more complicated explanation about the princess's private life. But leaving it as is might lead my relationship with Edwin in a strange direction. Edwin carefully opened his mouth. His voice carried a tension unlike his usual self.
Is that how you've been thinking?
Well, no. I stumbled over my words, trying to find an appropriate explanation.
If that's the case...
Edwin's voice softened, his blue eyes fixed on mine with an intensity I hadn't seen before.
What do you say we move to a place where we can delve deeper into those thoughts?
Move? Where to? Edwin cleared his throat and added,
to another quiet lodging without any frogs.
His words were brimming with unasked questions. We could both sense that something was changing between us.
Oh, hoo-hoo! Boo-hoo-hoo!
Suddenly, a sharp, sorrowful cry pierced the air, instantly shattering the peculiar atmosphere between Edwin and me. Following the sound, we found a pimpfield who had been inconspicuous in the corner of the inn room.
What? There was another one? I thought there were only 3 pairs.
Edwin exclaimed, touching his forehead in disbelief. The other pimpfield couples muttered,
"Oh, right. We didn't notice either. It was so unobtrusive."
I lowered my voice and carefully asked the sniffling pimpfield, "Are you all right? What's the matter?" The pimpfield answered with a vacant look, as if gazing into the distance.
I wanted to come with my beloved, but now we can never be together again.
The air around us grew heavy. My heart ached. I'm truly sorry to hear that. The pimpfield continued,
His warm touch, his smile, never again.
Then another pimpfield who had been quietly observing interjected,
"Wait, isn't your husband still alive?"
"What?" I had thought her husband was no longer in this world. Noticing my puzzled expression, the pimpfield explained,
Actually, we had a quarrel during our journey, and we separated. Here I am, alone in this place full of love.
"Stop crying!"
One pimpfield urgently cried out.
"We dewdrop fairies will wither and die if we shed too many tears."
Another pimpfield added,
"You still have a chance to reunite with your other half, but if you disappear, even that chance will be gone."
However, the grief-stricken pimpfield seemed deaf to their words. Tears continued to flow, and its body grew weaker by the moment. The concerned voices of the surrounding pimpfield grew louder.
"This could turn into a disaster."
Suddenly, the pimpfield's body collapsed as if sinking into the floor. Chaos erupted around us. Oh no, what should we do? Overwhelmed with confusion, I instinctively reached out towards the pimpfield. At that moment, something astonishing occurred. Purple magical energy flowed from my fingertips, enveloping the pimpfield's body. Like spring sunshine melting frozen earth, the light breathed new life into the pimpfield. The pimpfield's eyes flew open. Its sagging skin became taut again, and vitality overflowed from its entire body. "Are you all right?" I asked in a startled voice. The pimpfield replied with a vibrant voice,
Yes, I feel wonderful. It's as if I've been reborn. I couldn't care less about my missing husband now.
Seeing this, the other pimpfield's eyes sparkled. They rushed towards me excitedly.
"Me too! Please share that mysterious power with me as well. My shoulder aches and I can't sleep. Please help me."
In an instant, I was surrounded by curious pimpfields. They scrambled to touch my hands, and while I was flustered by this unexpected situation, I also felt a strange excitement. My heart raced at this mystical communion with these tiny creatures and the fact that I could empower them. Was I always capable of healing? I've only ever used magic to subdue others. Just then, a middle-aged pimpfield stepped forward. His eyes held deep wisdom.
No, this isn't healing. Strictly speaking, you're sharing your magical power.
Edwin interjected, his voice mixed with worry and a hint of irritation.
Wait, sharing magical power? Stop taking it. Valentina's magic isn't infinite.
The pimpfields flinched momentarily at Edwin's sudden intervention. The middle-aged pimpfield reassured Edwin.
Don't worry, young man. We're taking only a tiny amount. In fact, this process might help stabilize the lady's magical flow.
Stabilize, you say? To my question, the pimpfield responded.
Indeed, your magical flow is unstable. You're struggling to control this strong power, aren't you? It's like trying to dam a massive river with your bare hands.
How did you know that?
I suspected it when I realized you stopped us earlier in a fit of anger. But after receiving a share of your magic, I'm certain this is, well, unbelievable. Your magic is enormously vast, and that power, it's connected to something. as if it's touching the power of a colossal being.
A colossal being? So if I keep sharing magic with the pimpfields, it will stabilize? I asked anxiously. The pimpfield pondered for a moment before carefully saying,
Sharing with us alone isn't enough. It's merely a temporary solution. You need to find something you've lost. That will be the key.
Something I've lost? What is it? He shook his head with a regretful expression.
That I don't know. If you discover the nature of the enormous power connected to you and find that key, you'll be able to properly handle this power.
Something lost. What could it be, and how should I find it? As time passed, the atmosphere in the room gradually became drowsy. The pimpfields gathered around me wore contented expressions.
Being with you makes us so happy and peaceful.
Sleepy. I yawned involuntarily. As my consciousness began to fade, I heard a pimpfield's voice.
You must be tired from sharing your magic for the first time.
Hearing those words, I suddenly felt the fatigue in my body. I couldn't keep my eyelids from growing heavy. I felt Edwin carefully pulling the blanket over me.
Rest well.
His gentle voice lingered in my ear.
You were truly remarkable today.
I wanted to smile, but I no longer had the strength. Just before losing consciousness completely, I heard Edwin's soft murmur.
Others may have taken your attention today, but next time they won't.
Before I could ponder the meaning of those words, I drifted into a deep sleep, comforted by the knowledge that Edwin's warm gaze was watching over me.
As the dim dawn light that enveloped the imperial palace gradually receded, the last echoes of moonlight faded coldly over the stone walls. At that moment, a woman's nimble silhouette appeared at the edge of the wall. Her long hair shimmered silver as she gracefully leapt over the wall, landing as if in a dance.
Phew.
A small sigh escaped her lips, tinged with relief and subtle pride.
At this rate, it might be faster than using the main gate.
Suddenly, a cry rang out from the darkness.
Who goes there?
It was the voice of a guard on patrol. The tip of the spear in his hand glinted in the moonlight.
It's me.
The woman's reply was simple, but the authority in her voice was clear.
Princess Valentina?
The guard's eyes widened in surprise. He glanced around and lowered his voice.
Your Highness, where have you been at this late hour?
Valentina smiled and shrugged elegantly.
Is there anywhere in the Empire I cannot go?
The guard was momentarily speechless, his expression mixed bewilderment and respect.
Your Highness? But why over the wall? Isn't it dangerous?
You seem newly appointed. I'm returning from a covert task ordered by the Empress Mother. It happens often, so take note.
But why wouldn't Her Majesty the Empress assign such tasks to subordinates?
Valentina's gaze sharpened, her voice became firm.
How impertinent. I never gave you permission to question me.
My apologies.
The guard tensed, realizing his mistake, but as the princess's gaze turned skyward, he too looked up. A massive shadow appeared above the palace. It approached smoothly, yet imposingly.
That's...
The sight before the guard's eyes was overwhelming. A colossal black dragon, seemingly bearing scars of war, spread its wings towards the palace. The sight evoked both fear and awe. Valentina's violet eyes sparkled, and a joyful whisper escaped her lips.
Finally, you've returned.
The guard's face paled, his voice trembled as he spoke.
Your Highness, that's a terrifying undead dragon. How fortunate that His Majesty the Emperor can control such a monster. I daren't imagine if he couldn't.
Valentina smiled gracefully at the guard's fearful words. Her golden hair, streaked with pink, fluttered in the night breeze, her eyes still fixed on the enormous creature in the sky.
Undead? Yes, I suppose it would appear so to most. The dragon is alive.
His pardon.
The guard looked up at the sky again in confusion, his face etched with perplexity. Valentina handed her empty bag to the guard, her movements graceful, yet tinged with undisguisable excitement.
Give this to my handmaiden Melly. She should be waiting for me in the southern garden of the palace by now.
But your highness, if His Majesty the Emperor finds out.
The guard's voice was filled with concern. His hands trembled slightly as he took the bag. Valentina's eyes twinkled mischievously. As she waved and ran off, she called back,
You understand? I'll reward you handsomely for keeping a princess's secret.
The guard stood frozen in place, his mind in turmoil.
A living dragon, but it was clearly undead.
Atop the highest tower of the imperial palace, Princess Valentina's golden pink hair fluttered in the cold night breeze. Her violet eyes followed the massive shadow crossing the sky. The undead dragon landed near the palace. Its appearance was ghastly. Bones protruded through decaying flesh, and an aura of death emanated from its tattered wings. Madness and hatred flickered in its glowing red eyes. The dragon's voice was indistinct, but the violent impulse within was clear. As it growled threateningly and raised its foreleg, an invisible force seemed to envelop it. Its movement suddenly stopped, as if bound by transparent chains. The raised leg trembled in midair before slowly lowering.
It's time for father to have retired from official duties. It seems his authority extends even in his unconscious state.
Valentina observed this scene calmly. Her face showed no sign of agitation. She simply gazed at the undead dragon with composed eyes. Without flinching, she said,
Calm down. I've come to meet you.
She raised both arms, and a bright radiance blossomed from her fingertips. The light spread like mist, enveloping the surrounding space. The dragon howled as if in pain. Suddenly, a path of brilliant light opened before Valentina. Beyond it, a mysterious world where space and time seemed distorted unfolded, and Valentina's heart began to race. Her golden pink hair fluttered in the night breeze, and her violet eyes sparkled with anticipation. Then, a man emerged from the light. Long white hair flowed elegantly over his shoulders, and he blinked slowly, as if waking from a long dream. His gaze wavered unfocused, then suddenly became alert as his deep, mysterious eyes slowly scanned the surroundings. His eyes were a deep, mysterious blue. However, a golden radiance subtly emanated from within that blue abyss. It was a mystical hue, like sunlight reflecting in the depths of the sea. The man's lips moved slightly, and a soft, low voice flowed out.
Where am I? Why am I?
The man slowly raised his head, finally fixing his gaze on Valentina. A golden flash crossed his blue eyes, tinged with confusion and faint memories.
Jaina?
At that gaze, Valentina unconsciously drew in a breath. Sensing the uncertainty in the man's voice, she took a moment to compose herself before responding calmly. Her voice was steady, but a subtle tremor of deeply hidden emotion could be detected within it.
No, that would be my mother, Queen Jaina. I am Princess Valentina.
The man's eyes widened in surprise. His sharp features became more distinct in the ethereal light.
Jaina? Is queen now? And you? How long was I?
Valentina took a step closer as she listened to his words. At that moment, his intense presence almost took her breath away.
Many years have passed.
After a moment of silence, the man slowly spoke.
How much has the world changed? Who rules the empire now?
Valentina lowered her gaze briefly before meeting his eyes again.
The empire is ruled by Emperor Tartanus von Kreisen, and he is my father.
He heaved a heavy sigh.
So the empire has found peace. I should remain asleep.
No!
Valentina cried out urgently, unconsciously reaching for his arm before stopping herself. A look of puzzlement crossed the man's eyes. That gaze made her heart waver.
I came to save you. We need you.
The man's eyebrow raised slightly.
Me? Why wake a specter of the past? The empire seems to be functioning well without me.
Valentina gazed at him with determination in her eyes, her small fist clenched tightly.
That's not it. I want to set everything right.
A bitter smile played at the man's lips. He furrowed his brow deeply, and weariness was evident on what must once have been a strong face.
Impossible. You know nothing.
His voice grew darker.
My body is already dead. It's a miracle my consciousness remains.
No.
Valentina continued in a strong tone while carefully observing his reaction. Her voice held both conviction and desperation. She tried to catch every nuance of emotion that crossed his eyes, every subtle crease of his brow, every small movement of his lips.
I can see your true form. Dark absolute, we can go back. Trust me.
His expression wavered slightly at those words. Complex emotions flickered in his eyes. As silence fell, the tension between them intensified. Valentina held her breath, waiting for his response. Her fingertips trembled slightly.
Dark Absolute. That's not my name.
At last he spoke. It felt as though he was reaching for memories long forgotten.
Then,
Ior Mokra Haven.
He continued slowly.
Gardas Xeroc.
Ior Mokra, Haven.
As Valentina stumbled awkwardly over the words, the dragon continued slowly in his weighty voice.
Ior Mokra Haven.
His voice carried weight, as if reciting the flow of time itself.
Ior Mokra Haven.
Valentina carefully repeated.
Gardas Xeroc. That is my name.
Ior Mokra Haven, Gardas.
Valentina's voice wavered.
Xeroc.
Gardas Xeroc silently gazed at her. For one who had lived through ages, facing humans who couldn't properly pronounce his name was a common occurrence.
Ior Mokra Haven Gardas Xeroc.
When Valentina finally pronounced his name perfectly, the dragon's stern expression softened slightly.
Do all dragons have such long names? Couldn't we shorten it?
When Valentina spoke with a slightly sulky voice, his gaze sharpened.
A dragon's name is their very existence. Mispronunciating or shortening even a single letter is unforgivably disrespectful.
Valentina fell into thought for a moment, then lifted her head and looked at Gardas Xeroc with a faint smile.
Ior Mokra Haven Gardas Xeroc.
Her voice resonated softly, as if reciting an ancient poem.
It's like an ancient poem.
His sharp gaze faltered for a moment. Among the countless beings who had heard his name over the years, none had ever compared it to poetry.
That's the first time anyone has said that.
The wall of wariness in Gardas Xeroc's eyes seemed to crumble slightly. Unable to take her eyes off him, Valentina felt a strange emotion stirring in her heart. She couldn't be certain whether this was simply a desire to save him or something more.
Morning sunlight seeped between my eyelids. I slowly opened my eyes, the remnants of my dream still vivid. For the first time, I dreamed of this body's past. The majestic palace, the legendary dragon, and me as the princess. Everything was so clear. It felt too real to be just a simple dream. No, I want to see more. Hoping to gain more clues, I squeezed my eyes shut. But of course that was futile. The dream had already slipped away. They called me a curse, but in the past I was just an ordinary, no, a spirited princess. How did I go from that life to who I am now? I got up from bed and washed my face while continuing to ponder the dream. Ior Mokra. Ugh, why does the name have to be so complicated? My heart stirred at the thought of that complicated name, though I couldn't remember his appearance clearly except for his silver hair. Was he truly the dragon's true form? Questions kept arising. I needed to know more. This dream, no, this memory must be the beginning of the connection between the dragon and Valentina. I covered my face with my hands. Those complex emotions from the dream still lingered in a corner of my heart. Suddenly there was a knock, followed by a familiar voice.
It's morning. Did you sleep well?
Edwin entered the room with a smile. Yes, I slept well. But what about the pimpfields?
They left early at dawn. Thanks to you, they rested well and set off with the morning dew.
Oh, I didn't get to say goodbye. Disappointment tinged my voice. Edwin stepped closer and opened his palm. On it lay a small, round object gleaming with purple light.
They left this gift for you, said it matches your eyes.
Is this amethyst? The moment I grasped the amethyst, a strange serenity washed over me. A warm sensation spread throughout my body, as if meeting an old friend. And suddenly, the kissing scene with Princess Valentina, those visions from my dream, vividly, came rushing back. Ah! I screamed involuntarily, dropping the amethyst. The gem rolled away across the floor. Edwin asked with concern.
What's wrong? Are you all right?
I answered with a trembling voice. Just now, I had another vision.
A vision?
Remember what I was talking about last night? The kiss. Edwin's eyes widened and a moment of silence fell.
Oh, well, Valentina.
He cleared his throat, seeming slightly tense.
Actually, I wanted to bring that up again too, but since it came up so suddenly...
Edwin's gaze grew serious, his voice filled with anticipation.
All right, now that we're alone without any interruptions, shall we continue?
He leaned against the wall, inclining towards me with gentle eyes. Though I was momentarily confused by his manner, I continued excitedly. So, yesterday while eating, I suddenly remembered a scene of Princess Valentina about to kiss someone. It was so embarrassing. And today, the princess's memories came in my dream. And just now, when I held that amethyst, those scenes flashed by again. Edwin's expression changed instantly.
Wait, Princess Valentina? Not about you.
Finally, clearing up the misunderstanding, I nodded vigorously with relief. His face suddenly turned red, clearly flustered. Oh, Edwin stammered, clearing his throat.
Ah, ahem. I truly apologize.
So this must be Valentina's key.
Just then, we heard a pimpfields voice from beside where the gem had fallen. Her voice still carried traces of last night's sorrow over separating from her husband. Edwin shouted in surprise.
What? You didn't leave?
Hasty Cake Club, where every bite is a taste of sweet adventure. Ready for a more adventurous flavour in your life? Subscribe and taste the magic.